down there. All right. If you're familiar with the SAS website, you've got this splash page right in the beginning on the homepage. Right now, it's promoting international equity and equitable hub practices. You can click on that link, get there, and see what that's all about. Also, down below, you've got this more SAS news, different information that comes out periodically. It gets sent out about once a week. There's a little news blurb. If you'd like to get that in your email, this little orange button's an RSS feed. You can sign up through that, and then that RSS feed comes to your email. And then on that, again, the top right, this yellow box, when you log in, it should have your name and My SAS Tools. So we'll take a look at that. And then down below, there's two things on the homepage. There's this help and contact us. If you ever have a problem with SAS and want a navigational piece, you can click on this, takes you to different portals of the PDE Center Leadership System. But if you click on SAS, again, you can get 1 or 2 pages about information about any of the areas in SAS with some directions. So that's one area. The other area is this contact us. And in the contact us, if you ever have a technical issue, you can submit it to PLS. That is the group that runs the SAS website. Describe your problem, email, the help desk will get back to you. Or there's this little hidden thing called Connect with Content Advisors. If you click on that, at PDE, not only myself as the math advisor, but any content advisor. So for any teacher, you want to connect with somebody in a content area, you click on that content, and then you can get a direct link to somebody at PDE who is in charge of that content. Career education, early childhood, English language arts, whoever it may be, you can send them directly an email. So if you ever have a question content-wise, you can go directly to a PDE content person and get that. Because right now, if you call PDE, there's nobody there. So that is that. And then this is the main page. As you can see, when I go to the top, we've changed it a little bit. Before, you'd have to say, click on standards, and it would bring you that page. Now we've got a drop-down menu. So if you want to go straight to somewhere in standards instead of the clicks, you can highlight and hover over standards and go straight to download standards, and poof, you're right there at download standards, so we can download any of those standards. I do want you to keep in mind, and the PLS folks are working on this. If we look at materials and resources, it goes down to career readiness. The problem is, and they're fixing this, should be fixed as of tonight, there's more than the career readiness of all these buttons. So they're not all there, but that hopefully gets corrected tonight as they speak. So as we go through the top of these 6 circles from the old SAS, we're in standards. Again, not much has changed when you click on it. You still have these buttons. And here we go. All of them there. The PSSA, the download Keystone Anchors, all this information here. If we go to the search, because this was a big change in SAS, it's a lot different. Before there was some yellow bubbles, said grade level and content. Now we have a wireframe on the left. You can search by keyword or standard, but or we can search here by, let's go with grade. Click on 5th grade. Then once you click on 5th grade, all the 5th grade standards come up. We can scroll down even further and click on content area, and we're going to click on mathematics. So now we have all the 5th grade math standards. And as you can see, its information is right here. I'm going to go down to the wireframe. There's this courses, and the courses only if you're doing one of the Keystone courses. You would click on any of that. So now we're going to look at this right here. This standard in 5th grade, the CC215C2. As you can see, there's 4 eligible content, 4 alternate eligible content, and 4 English language development skills. I want you to be aware this alternate eligible content is not designed for, if you don't like the original eligible content, it is for the PASA or the special education test. So again, you can look at that and see what those are. So if we clicked on this eligible content, now you can see it breaks it down into the eligible content. And actually before, you can go to assessments and materials and resources. So you can go to the assessment center, which we'll look at in a little bit, questions directly related to that eligible content. And materials and resources, which we'll look at, is materials and resources directly related to that eligible content and or within the standard. So the search function is completely different than what was there before. So we go back to standards. Other than that, within the standards area, nothing has really changed. The standards haven't changed. The download PA core implementation, all this information is still the same. So we're going to now kind of go across and go to safe and supportive schools. This is a big environment right now. This page was just recently updated. Before it was just Act 26. Now we've got links to PA Department of Education safe schools. And if you look at that, is we tried to pull out the information from the safe schools that directly impacted teachers and instruction. You got the bullying prevention, Pennsylvania career readiness skills, equity and inclusion, mental health, school climate. So if we look at school climate, now you can see some different information that is there. So again, information, mental health. Now we've got this right here, mental health, SEL best practices resource, child trauma toolkit for educators. These take you direct links to links in the PDE website under Safe Schools. It's a little easier than trying to navigate sometimes a Pennsylvania Department of Education website, especially if you're not on it longer. It can be rather cumbersome. Now you've got a quick link to information directly helping teachers. So that's the Safe Schools. All right. Any questions at this point? All right. Now we've got materials and resources. If we click on this, again, nothing much has changed. A couple things I want to highlight are the toolkits down at the bottom. If you're not aware of them, they're there as resources for teachers, and the Power Library. The Power Library, if you haven't used this, you may or may not. This is access to the whole Pennsylvania library system online. And it is free for everybody, teachers, parents, students, whoever it may be. You've clicked on that Power Library, you can get some overview about the information there. You could send home to parents. But if we click on it real quick, it takes us out of the SAS website and it gets us to the PA Power Library website. Again, very powerful information. This is free. You either need a library card, or if you don't have a library card, you can sign up and get an e-library card. Two areas are the Power Kids. Again, BookFlix, online books, TrueFlix, just information for kids. All this is right here available that. And then besides that one, we're going to go to the teen one, because the teen one gives actually teens, high school students, the ability to search a library if they're doing research. Instead of just going straight to Google, now you can look at the library and see what it has to offer. Maybe a safer place instead of just traveling that World Wide Web. One thing I like about this is this chat with a librarian. This is a great interaction, either teenagers or little kids. Put their name, put their school email address, put a question in. There's librarians that are 24/7 to monitor this. You can start that chat. So if students are having a problem looking up research, they can ask a librarian and they can get resources specifically for them that are free for everybody. Again, this is also with parents. If they're doing a hybrid model in education, parents need resources, they can go to the library, or you can, as a teacher, put links to this system in here and specific things, such as for the little kids, BookFlix, and get books online. All right, that's the Power Library under materials and resources. All right, the other thing we want to look at is this search. Again, if you've been in materials and resources before, the search was kind of cumbersome. We have that same wireframe. One thing you want to keep in mind, when the pandemic hit, we were in the process, all the materials and resources on SAS have been vetted again for good links, bad links. Are they aligned to standards? Are they at a correct grade level? So all of this has been done at the start of summer. So again, we can search anything in the So if we want to search 5th grade, we're going to scroll down to mathematics again. Okay, there's 5th grade math. Now, if you look at this, you've got this content type. You can get lesson plans, instructional content, assessments, videos. There may be some professional development. There you've got unit plans, some activities. All this information is right here. You can also search, and I forgot to do that, by, I wanted to go down here. 5th grade math. There's the course, content collections, and toolkits. There we go. View more, if any of those toolkits that are there. Now these content collections, let's put that there. All right. So now we can search by however it may be into mathematics. And again, there you've got web-based resources. So all that information is there. There was one thing in here is what I'm looking for, and I don't see it. So I'm going to have to ask. You should be able to search by standards, but it's not there at the moment. So I need to find out why it's not there at the moment. So that is mathematics, and we'll have to figure that out.
Kevin, can you click on one of those like a lesson plans? Does any of this integrate into LMS platforms that our districts are using?
It can. So let me check one thing. I want to go back to the search.
Okay.
I love with a webinar and then something isn't working, because you should be able to search by standard, and I'm not seeing it. So I have to find out what happened. So let's go back to 5th grade math, because I was going to show that.
So Kevin, can I jump in for just a second?
Looking at
the time, and I sent you a little message in the chat box. I didn't know if the group had any questions about mathematics and instruction, or what you're experiencing in your school. I know when I'm on the road with some math stuff, I get a lot of questions about, what might the state perspective be on the gaps we're seeing. Where is instruction going? Like, we have that battle like ELA does with, whole language and phonics, and we have procedural versus conceptual understanding. So I think maybe if anyone has questions about their own student populations that they're seeing, but I know addressing the gap and what would be some guidance that you could give us for that to start off with.
And actually that is coming out. If you're not familiar, Pennsylvania has that roadmap of learning. Have you seen that?
Yeah, so I know the like the interim standards are there, or the focus standards, I believe they're called.
Right.
Right. So we're still looking at, that's helpful. Give me puppies in the window for my folks. Have you seen the focus standards yet? That'd be a yes or a no. Okay.
Have they seen that?
Yes, a few have. And so,
okay.
Yeah. And so what would be the perspective on how to use them best in our classrooms? And please, if anyone in the group, because I know most of you, I know you all have a voice. You'll get an email, Amy, I'm telling you now. But if you have any questions of instruction that you're seeing that you'd like to ask Kevin, please do so.
One thing with those focus standards, they're there, but really in all the research it says when it comes to looking at the gaps, is not to start, and hopefully you did not, I mean, we're well into the school year, is to start with the previous end of year material. You hopefully started this school year with on grade level material, you would start with a normal year. And as you assess your students, that is where if you find gaps, you would fill that in with supplemental instruction. But you do not want to, start with that previous year's worth of material that we missed since March. And then what happens at the end of the year, you've now missed that material again, and that creates a larger gap. So all the research that I've read, and it says that in the focus document, is start with grade level material, and then as you assess your students, fill in where you can with those gaps that support the instruction that you're doing at that time. And that gets to be the biggest one.
For those of you that do not know what we're talking about as far as the focus areas, I'm going to put them in the chat, so your chat might get really long in a second here, but this is the focus instruction on the roadmap. right now. And then we have focus assessment areas that PDE put out as well. So, sorry, I just wanted to put that in the chat for everyone.
So we'll look at that right here, and I'll pull that up. So here's the roadmap, and under this area was instruction, was focus of effective instruction. And if you read that, it goes with the assessment cycle of assess, analyze, interrupt, and instruct, and reflect and monitor. And then there's a couple ways to assess. On this one is a SAS assessment builder, which we're going to look at. And then you can look at the PD assessment protocols. That's coming. Another way is to really look at the classroom diagnostic tool. And then there you have the assess the priorities math standards. And if we click on that document, it goes from grade K to Algebra 1. If we look at one of these documents, I will pull up third grade. And then as we look at this, again, some verbiage in here based on how to assess and information that is there. This roadmap, talk about focus areas of instruction. You know, what is there in the different areas, and then the focus standards, as they call them. And these are the standards. I want you to be aware, though, all the standards and all the eligible content is important at every grade level. So it's not where you're going to want to say, no, we don't want to teach the other standards or other eligible content, because really when it comes down to assessment, all the standards and eligible content is assessed when it comes to the PSSA. And then there's a little thing to focus in this area on the standards of mathematical practice. Hopefully you're all familiar with those to look at that. It really, in this roadmap for math, the biggest focus is really focusing on, you know, numbers and operations and algebraic skills. If we look at that, it maps clearly across the standards documents. It does highlight a little bit of geometry and data and measurement, but a big focus of that is, you know, that numbers and operations, algebraic concepts. So that's what that document looks like. Any questions on those?
My understanding was those were released on Friday. Todd, am I correct? And
Yes.
Kevin, okay, Friday they were just.
You're kind of getting a preview, because November 3rd there will be the instructional and assessments webinar for the roadmap on November 3rd, I think, unless they change the date, because that is election day. So they may or may not change that. So if you want to get that information, you can see more of this on November 3rd. But that will also be taped, and you can look at that. So if we look at any of these, any questions about the roadmap?
Does anyone have any questions about instruction, or kind of, again, what you would like to hear, what maybe Kevin's perspective is from what he's heard from other districts or his travels? We have about, what, Becky, about 8 minutes?
8 minutes, yeah.
All right.
I know Todd and I have talked about, like, before COVID hit, we were really big on stations and, you know, the rotation model and everything. Have you seen any districts trying to, or have heard any teachers trying to implement station rotation, and how that might look right now in some districts?
There are some districts that do a station rotation, and they do that via Zoom with the different breakout rooms, and each breakout room has a task that they do, and they give that information to the kids through that, and they have to talk. The one thing, because with assessment and getting kids to give a valid assessment, is trying to create that collaboration and that student discourse in that small chat room. Then the teacher, goes around and around the different stations within the Zoom breakout rooms. There's some trying to do that, and there's some trying to, do a lesson and then have the kids break out, in small groups to discuss what's going on and give them a problem.
Great.
So,
I actually had a question. It's in regards to the gaps that we're talking about. The structure of our curriculum tended to be that the areas that were of the worst of the gap, because of looking at CDTs that we administered at the end of September, we saw the reporting categories of measurement and data and geometry as a whole that's where our biggest gap was for kids, quite simply because that's where the majority of instruction remaining in the year was left behind.
Correct.
Is this a trend that we're hearing from other districts as well, or is it strictly because of our curriculum, or do we have similar paths?
No, most curriculum with the data and the geometry is at the end of the year, and that was highly missed at the end. So no, you are correct. One thing you may want to look at, you gave the whole entire CDT, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, you may want, now you can break that CDT down and only give a test on one of the reporting categories.
Yes, we are aware of that. We wanted to see what we were dealing with.
Okay.
It just brought it all into reality for us.
Right.
We are going to be doing the diagnostic categories later in the year as we see fit.
And that may become really good into play when you after you teach the geometry, say after you teach the bulk of your geometry, give that CDT at the end of that and see where they are even. And then fill in some of those gaps or do a pre-test and a post-test.
Thank you. Appreciate the help.
Yeah. So the CDT is broken down in that. So we've got a few minutes left and there's a ton of stuff on SAS. Is the assessment center, you can actually do a couple things here. You can build an assessment, which is the same as before, grade level with this wire frame and all the PDE questions. So here's 3rd grade. We can go to math. And it gives you all the questions. If you're not familiar with this, you can create an assessment. One thing you can do when you create this assessment, let's say as a teacher, again, all the item samplers, there's lots of questions here. As we look at that and we view, create that new assessment, view my assessment, one thing you can do after you build an assessment, you have the option of when you save this into my assessment. Now I'm going to go back to my assessments, because one thing you can do in here, after you build an assessment and you save it in my assessment, and here's assessments I've done, you can share this assessment with your colleagues. So now you have the ability to create an assessment in SAS and share it with your colleagues, and that becomes part of their assessments. The other thing you can do after you build an assessment is this check for understanding. This is where you can create an assessment and get a link of that assessment. Here's an 8th grade, and then you can send this assessment out to your students via they can do it on the iPad, they can do it in class, but you can get an online assessment real quick. And this is one way to it's a check for understanding. Then you get data based on the classroom, whether or not they all understand and get that data and those questions. So it's one way now you can do an online assessment for kids. This was designed more for after instruction, as ticket out the door, or at the beginning of a class, say, did they get yesterday's lesson? Was a great way to do that. When you talk about, do they understand geometry, and that you can do a check for understanding going back into the geometry questions prior to some instruction to see where they are. So you can get some questions in there.
Sorry, in that area with the assessments and the check for understandings, are there ones that are already created that teachers could use, since we're all kind of looking at the same standards?
No, but you can take one real quick and then you can share it with your peers. So it's really not that difficult. So if we look for check for understanding, you've created an assessment. You just go into create a new check for understanding, pick the assessment you created. Let's say I created a math check. And we're just going to say math practice check. You put an end date on it. So when it ends, if it ends tomorrow at a certain time, and then you can, save it. So it ends there tomorrow after time, and then you can create it. You get a link to that. One thing you can do also is that for all the multiple choice, you can display the answers for check for understanding. So students could get the answer and it'll tell them whether or not they were right or wrong. So this is it's a huge, huge feature and upgrade in SAS. And I know we only had a couple minutes to look at that. be glad if anybody wants to spend some time and go over this assessment center, you know, in more detail. Be happy to show you, because it can be a very powerful tool, especially if you want to looking at the gaps after any instruction or before instruction. You can get a quick, easy assessment, because all these questions in SAS are aligned to standards and aligned to eligible content.
Yeah,
So, which makes it very nice.
Kevin, thank you. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Did you say that that assessment piece was not open yet, that it opens Friday? What did you say that opened Friday?
That was the roadmap information, and it went open last Friday.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, Kevin, I want to be respectful of your time and their time,
Yeah.
but
I could talk about this stuff all day.
no, it's great. I do, the whole point of this, why we're bringing this together, Todd and myself and our division here, is just to make these connections for our region. So please feel free to reach out if you want your department, you know, to meet, or you have a point of contact now at the state. So
My email is in the chat.
yep, and we'll send it out. I'm going to share my screen real quick so you can see where we put everything after this is recorded. So you should be able to see my screen, hopefully. Do you see my screen? Yeah, okay, good. If you click on the professional learning on iu17.org, go down to continuity of ed. These are all of our free resources right now. And go to after hours of PDE. And you can see we have all of these content discussions set up until January. Some of them are for administrators, some are for equity, which are for, you know, you can jump in on as well. But if you scroll down, you can see last week we had technology education. So we'll put math up here tomorrow, and you just click on it and it will have the recording and then the resources that Kevin mentioned. So I did want to show you that so you can view it, and I'll send out a follow-up email as well. So again, want to be respectful of your time. If you have any questions, please, we'll stick on for a minute or two, but thank you, Kevin, for
Hey, no
taking the
problem.
time to
Yeah.
take our region, and hope you guys have a great day. Night.
And if you have any questions, please reach out. We'll help you.